Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Um, so a lot has happened over with Paramount and this whole Warner Brothers thing. For me, do I personally approve of this deal? Not even close. But regardless of whether this deal gets blocked or not, there are still going to be a lot of crap happening under Hollywood that might still change the industry, not for the better. So for this video, we're going to talk about the pros, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly with this whole thing of Paramount trying to own Warner Brothers. We're going to break down scenarios. What happens if Paramount owns Warner Brothers? What happens if Paramount gets blocked from owning Warner Brothers? And what happens if Warner Brothers stays in an independent studio? We will break these all down. But, of course, before breaking, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below on what you feel about this whole thing. So, Paramount has not been doing too good recently as a movie studio. Last year, not a single one of their films have made the top 10 last year. While Warner Brothers films like a Minecraft movie and Superman easily scored past, easily made it into the top 10 highest grossing movies of 2025. Meanwhile, from what I can remember, now correct me on this, I could be wrong, I don't remember a single Paramount film from that year making an actual good amount of profit. Could be wrong, but I don't remember that. I remember for a fact that Paramount's only big film from 2025 was, I think, Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. But that film didn't really make a whole bunch of money. Well, it would have. I mean, it made around, I think I could be wrong about this, maybe $572 million or 590, whatever the case. It made a lot of money. And for a normal Hollywood, that's a massive amount of money. But that movie cost around $300 to $400 million to make. It had to make nearly $1 billion to break even. So that was already a flop for Paramount. And then, really, I can't remember a whole bunch of what Paramount had during that year. This year was a little different because Scream, I think it was Scream 7, I believe. Yeah, Scream 7 came out this year. And it was a huge box office hit. Despite the fact that it has a cheap budget, it made Paramount a lot of good money. And Scary Movie has already hit the theaters, and it's already making Paramount some good enough money too, since Scream and Scary Movie already very cheap movies to make for Paramount. I think the upcoming Paw Patrol movie will probably do the same thing. Since it's very cheap, it's probably going to make around $150 million, and that'll be a quick home run for Paramount. But for Paramount's other films, I believe the upcoming Angry Birds movie, that's going to flop big time. But of course, we're not talking about Paramount slate. We're talking about what this deal could mean for the Hollywood industry as a whole, and for Paramount. Paramount just recently bought out Skydance 2 years ago, and of course, the deal was finalized last year, and Skydance became Paramount, and David Ellison became CEO of the company. By late 2025, when Warner Brothers was trying to get bought out, Paramount, Netflix, and Universal was trying to buy out the company. Universal tried, but failed. The deal was getting too expensive. And then it was literally being in a close quarters deal between who was going to get Warner Brothers, who's going to get it, who gets all this stuff for content. Netflix was fighting to get it, and that deal nearly worked. But the crazy thing is, Netflix is a streaming first company. They're not really a company that actually goes to strive to put their films out in theaters unless they're reissues or releases. Netflix relies most of its money on streaming. So of course, that would already do bad for Warner Brothers. That deal eventually failed because Paramount was just constantly getting greedy and was not letting go of Warner Brothers getting bought out by Netflix. So what happened is Paramount, out of nowhere, they go book like $24 billion from other international states to actually help them, which is very illegal to buy out a studio, by the way. But Paramount does not know Disney when it came to that. Disney paid out full tuition. They paid out all their full money to about 20th Century Fox, despite it being a very expensive deal, and they're never going to do it again. But yeah. So of course, the deal had to handle a bunch of massive hurdles. I think like I forgot like what company tried to block the merger. Whatever the case, David Ellison won the merger, but there's still like one more stuff to go. They have to deal with the European Union, and believe me, they are still trying to determine if this deal is really going to hurt the theater like industry as a whole. Because the way they're going about things is this. The deal is not finalized until July 14th. And the European Union and the California's places and other like international markets like Italy, they have to make sure that like, is this deal actually going to hurt California workers? If not, sure, it's A-okay. But if it is, they might actually block the deal, which David Ellison could try to sue him or whatever. That would not work. Or they could try to delay it to a 90-day window, which Paramount already has a ticking clock, and they're already losing money by the day for this merger. Like, I think they're only getting like around like 25 cents a minute every time, like on a net profit every time that they're trying to have this merger be stabilized. Now, of course, nothing's really concrete, but if they keep on, like if the European Union delays to a 90-day window, Paramount would ultimately, David Ellison especially, like he would 100% want Warner Brothers. You have to make sure your company is stable enough and not go bankrupt trying to get Warner Brothers. Because by the time that September deadline hits, like David Ellison's gonna have to completely abandon the deal and like go treat Paramount as an independent movie studio. Now, let me talk about this first scenario. What happens if the European Union actually lets Paramount have the full rights and control over Warner Brothers? What could happen? The good thing is, Paramount would have a full library of Warner Brothers classics like Casablanca. I can't think of any other stuff that Warner Brothers has though, but Warner Brothers has like a huge, very massive catalog, and even some entertainment IP like Looney Tunes and stuff, and Paramount's entire DC catalog. So you could see crossovers like Movie Sonic meeting the Flash from DC or something like that, and they can make an entire comic book out of it. Like, I mean, Sega wouldn't even have to constantly look at Warner Brothers for rights to get their DC characters because Paramount would already have them. They already own the rights to it. So Sonic fans would technically be rejoicing over this deal. So there would be more crossovers, and there would be more franchises being done because Paramount, to recover all that $110 billion debt investment they made into this entire merger, this means specifically, and this is where the cons get in. This means specifically that Paramount would only produce franchise-focused films and less creative films yearly. This means that Warner Brothers, since Warner Brothers, they were technically carrying 2025 on their shoulders. When usually when movie theaters are actually like in the fall, there's not really a whole bunch of movies playing, especially movies from big studios like Disney, Paramount, Universal. They really have like no big movies playing, and really Warner Brothers actually puts out holdover like original indie titles to carry theaters to profit. If Warner Brothers gets banned from doing that, and Paramount says we're only going to do franchise films only, that's going to be seriously bad for theater business, and that might shut some theaters down because they won't have a whole bunch of content and a whole bunch of box office money to keep the lights on. And another thing, this would pretty much be the death of original creativity in Hollywood. It would. With straight up like nothing happening, with no like original films being done by Warner Brothers, directors would probably only have to pivot to something small like A24 or pivot directly to streaming services like Netflix, which already pretty much means the death of creativity as a whole. Another thing, streaming prices would go insanely up. With Paramount owning Warner Brothers, that means Paramount would have to merge Warner Brothers into their service, and we could be looking at something like you paying $30 or $35 a month for the subscription service, which could be very, very bad. And this merger could also pretty much mean the death of Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network has always been a very like important like entertainment studio like under like Warner Brothers, because they made like a lot of classics like The Amazing World of Gumball, Regular Show, Powerpuff Girls, you name it. They made it. Johnny Bravo too. I don't know what Pacific company they have it, but Paramount, like if they own both Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, they would be owning pretty much 40% of the global children's television network, which would be unfair to other competitors like Disney. So of course Paramount would have to sell something, and odds are it's looking like Paramount would be open to selling like Cartoon Network anyway, because they would never sell Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon makes like Paramount billions of dollars every year with TV shows like SpongeBob, Paw Patrol, and Avatar: The Last Airbender. Without those, even Paramount themselves would still struggle to have the lights stay on for their studio, because TV shows like SpongeBob is pretty much contributes 5% to Paramount's yearly profits. And Paramount definitely is not letting that show go anytime soon. So for the good scenario, if Paramount actually owns it, it would mean more films, crossover stuff, collaborations would be easier from smaller companies like Sega. But the bad thing is death of original content. Movie theaters probably, some movie theater chains getting shut down, and theater price and streaming prices going exponentially up. Now, let's look to the second scenario to see what happens if the deal doesn't go by. So the European Union, if they fail to actually acquire, if they say Paramount, they can't actually, if they block the deal, then David Ellison and all the executives of Paramount would have to pay Warner Brothers $5 billion for all the damages. And Paramount would most likely be forced to be that one studio, Paramount and Skydance, with no Warner Brothers at all. Which will still be good for Warner Brothers because that would still mean original content. That would still mean theaters have the lights stay on, and more directors can still tell original stories over there without getting rejected by other companies like Disney. And it would actually still leave 5 major theater chains still competing with each other instead of losing more. Because the more competition you lose, the more or less movies you're actually going to get. So, within that, everything will pretty much stay the same. But the one issue is this. Since Warner Brothers would be up for grabs, that would mean a company like Netflix, since Warner Brothers would still, since they still want to sell their company off to some other studio or some other big massive company, Netflix would be the pure candidate. Netflix has proven that themselves that they can successfully buy out Warner Brothers anyway. With Paramount off the table, and if Netflix is actually allowed to get Warner Brothers, that deal would also be insanely bad because Netflix is a streaming first company. They mainly go against theaters. The only time they actually partner up with theaters is put out reissues of their content or put out new episodes of their content for theaters and then on streaming to help promote their IPs. But for Warner Brothers, since they're a film studio, and since Netflix did say that they would put Warner Brothers films out for 45 days, that's still very, very bad. Because even Netflix themselves really don't even like long theatrical runs themselves. So pretty much, you would see a movie be in theaters for around probably a week or two, and then on Netflix right after. The paradox would just not be good, and theaters would suffer massively from it. And scenario 3, our final scenario. The deal gets blocked, the marriage gets blocked, and Warner Brothers becomes a separate studio. It's still a lose-lose scenario for Warner Brothers regardless, because even with $5 billion on them, Warner Brothers still has a whole bunch of debt that they would have to cover from partnering up with other stuff like AT&T and Discovery that also cause them massive debts. So, regardless of the case, no matter which happens, the movie theater industry is going to be cooked either way. There is nothing saving it, and while Warner Brothers is the saving grace, if the deal fails, or if it succeeds, movie theaters are still going to struggle because they need Warner Brothers to still stay active and have the lights on so they can make more content to keep theaters going all year long. That's why I would love a theater, a movie theater studio like Universal by Warner Brothers, since Universal has actually shown that to make original content as well, not just only franchises. So regardless of the case, whatever happens, Hollywood is still not safe. So we can say we don't want the Paramount deal to happen. If it doesn't happen, sure, that's a win for creativity, but that's still like a death sentence for Warner Bros. if they can't get bought. If they get bought up by Netflix, that's a death sentence for theaters because less movies means less returns, and less returns means less paying the bills and less keeping the expensive lights on. Regardless of the case, y'all, if this deal fails, if it succeeds, if Warner Bros. Decides to become dependent, Hollywood is still cooked either way. And from what we're looking like, by the end of this year, whatever happens, Hollywood is not safe and might actually fall. by the end of 2026.